6 hours now until kick-off. I'm delighted to say that former England defender Jamie Carragher joins me live now to continue our countdown to kick-off. Jamie, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us here on Sky Sports News. We just heard from Sir Geoff Hurst there saying that the criticism he feels is a little bit harsh. There's been a lot of talk this week, hasn't there, from various members of the squad and different people in the media. What have you made of the build-up to this game after the first two group stage games?
Well, that's the nature of the beast with, playing for England in a tournament. All the focus is on the team. And it's not just about results, it's about performances as well. And this is an England team that have set such high standards that we feel going into this tournament, this is a tournament that we can win. So, you're going to be judged like the top teams in Wales football are judged. And this type of criticism, I'm sure, will happen in France, Spain, whether it was, if it was a World Cup. I'm sure Argentina and Brazil are getting a similar sort of analysis around them. But I think what's slightly different is that when I played, we were used to this type of criticism. It's possibly more now because of social media, but, we had this in a lot of tournaments because tournaments didn't go well. I would say this group of players have never had this before because since Southgate come in, every tournament's been a positive. Even the last one, because we lost to France, we were unlucky, Kane missed the penalty. I think in all these tournaments, the players have had a lot of pats on the back, and these players are probably not used to the negativity around England in an international tournament, and that's because they've done so well. Credit to them. So this is the first time they've probably felt the wrath of whether pundits or the media in an international tournament because they perform so well so often. So it's new to a lot of these players who've been to the last 2 or 3 tournaments. So I think that's why there's been a little bit more of a reaction coming back from the players, which I have no problem with at all. If you're a pundit or you're in the media and you've given analysis, whether that's criticism or a bit of flack out, you can't complain too much when it comes back. That's the nature of the job as well. But that's my overriding sort of thought on it, that it's probably new to a lot of these players representing England.
Really keen to ask you this, Jamie, because from an outsider's perspective, I mean, you've obviously been in England camps. Now you're a high-profile pundit yourself, but I always wonder myself, why do they consume any of the media whilst they're out there? Why are they reading papers or social media or tuning in? Is it really hard to block it out, or do players tend to sort of go out of their way to try and see maybe how the nation is feeling towards their performances?
They read it or they hear about it. There's human beings. Forget that the footballers are just normal lads. If someone was writing an article on you, you'd probably find a way of reading it, or someone would let you know what was in it. And they'll try and stay away from it, but they have entourage, you'll have people around them, you'll have text messages. It's impossible not to be too aware of it. I actually don't believe the players when they say they don't read it or they don't see it. I actually believe the manager, Gareth Southgate. I think he's probably experienced enough, he's old enough and mature enough now where he probably really is not interested in what people have got to say. But young lads, listen, they're like anybody, even though just because they're great footballers doesn't mean that, they're different from the normal man on the street. They like a pat on the back. As I said, they'll have agents and, families, entourages there, and no one likes criticism. And as I said, they're probably not used to it because it's the first time there's been a real negativity around probably Gareth Southgate team and squad in a tournament. But I think there won't be papers in the hotel, things like that, but we know now with phones and social media it's very difficult to keep away from it, really. So I've got no problem with them reacting a little bit and feeling it and reading it, or some of them will try and stay away from it, but more often than not it'll end up getting back to them.
Yeah, OK, let's talk football then, Jamie. In terms of tonight's game, it looks like Trent AlexanderArnold will be replaced by Conor Gallagher in the midfield. Is that an admission that maybe it hasn't quite worked for Trent to move from right back to this England midfield role?
Well, it hasn't worked for anybody, not just Trent going into midfield. The setup of the team just hasn't worked in these first 2 games, and I felt there would be changes in the game. I think it feels a little bit harsh on Trent because there's only one change. So sometimes you think, well, OK, everyone will look at that now as if that's the problem. I'm surprised there's only one change, if I'm being totally honest. I can understand that change. I've seen some criticism of Gareth Southgate because he's only made one change and it looks like Trent's the fall guy or the scapegoat. But the manager's allowed to pick the team. He can pick what he wants. That's his job. And if he feels there should be a change made, and I think there probably should have been 2 or 3 changes made if I would have been in charge. But there's only one change made in the midfield. Listen, it hasn't gone well, but I don't think that's necessarily down to Trent. The problem is Trent's, I would say, the best passer of the ball in the team. But his long passing is as good as anyone in this tournament. But the way England have been set up, they haven't actually had players who would rely on long balls over the top. There's only one real runner in the team, and that's Saka. So that's not playing to Trent's strengths. But that's not really a criticism so much of the manager, because I think when you get to international football, and most of the big teams have this, they have a lot of great players, and people are always arguing who this team should be built around or who we should be playing for. So, the team can't be built around Trent, for his strengths when he's just gone into midfield to start with. So, yeah, that's always the difficult conundrum for the manager, who he's trying to sort of play to which sort of player's strengths really to get the most from him. And unfortunately for Trent, it hasn't been him, and it was always going to be difficult in there in terms of getting on the ball, because so many players in the team want to come to feet, and you don't need to be Trent Alexander-Arnold to play a sort of 10, 15-yard pass into someone's feet. What makes him special is playing sort of 40, 50-yard passes over the top, but England haven't got players who rely on that at the moment.
Who else in particular, Jamie, would you have liked to see maybe being given a chance in this game?
I'd like to see Anthony Gordon play. And again, I go back to what player you're almost... I don't like the term build the team around, because I don't think anyone should have a team built around them. But I think there's players you've almost got to play to the strengths. And I look at, for me, the 2 I look at really are Harry Kane and Declan Rice. And the reason I use them is because I don't think we've got great replacements for them if anything happened to them. So Harry Kane, we know, for the last 5 or 6 years, has dropped in between the lines and come to receive the ball to his feet, because he hasn't got the pace to run in behind. So I've listened to a lot of analysis of Harry Kane's performances, and he can play better. But a lot of the analysis about what he's got to do, and I think some of it's nonsense, honestly. I mean, I feel like some people haven't seen Harry Kane play for the last 6 years. He is unique in that most strikers towards the end of the career come deep because they haven't got the pace to run in behind, and that normally affects their goal contribution because they can't get in the box. The reason Harry Kane's unique is he comes and plays as like a 9.5 or a number 10, and he's still scoring 30 plus goals a season. So for me, yes, Ollie Watkins had a great season, but he's not Harry Kane. So for me, Harry Kane needs pace around him. He needs players to run in behind, because he's not going to do that. So I think Saka on one side, Gordon on the other, would provide that penetration in terms of making penetrating runs in behind. That would have been perfect for someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold if he was still in the team, but sadly not. But I think that helps Kane. And I go back to Declan Rice. I think in the last game, he was sort of, I wouldn't say isolated, but there was a big problem. There was a big disconnect between the back 6 and the front 4 of the team. And I think it just needed a bit more energy in there. Conor Gallagher looks like he's going to come in, and he's not technically as good as Trent Alexander-Arnold. We know that, but he'll have different strengths. And I mean, the biggest thing for me is without the ball, England. That's where we've had massive problems, without the ball. Our press, I mean, I've seen a lot of clips and different things, and the space is just huge, and it needs to stop. You need to be compact. I say that continually when I'm working the sky defensively, whether you're deep, whether you're high. And that's been the problem. When they've pressed high, people saying, England can't press high, or Harry Kane can't press high. He has pressed. It's just that the team is just, the distance between the front man and the back 4 is just being enormous, and that has to change. That is the biggest problem England have got right now. Not on the ball. It's stopping opposition play. We've played Serbia and Denmark, 2 teams who've got absolutely no chance of winning this tournament or probably going far. But they had a midfield player, certainly Denmark, and Højbjerg, who's just a good Premier League midfield player. He ran the game. He was the best midfield player on the pitch against England. That can't be right, and that's because the press is not right. There's too much space given to the opposition. So that is the thing. And the reason why I think Conor Gallagher's come in is because England have to sort out their pressing game, because if they don't get that right, they've got absolutely no chance.
Yeah, a big topic of conversation as well, Jamie, has been Luke Shaw. Obviously, it looks like he's going to miss out again, certainly in the starting lineup for this game. How tough is it as a defender? We've seen Kieran Trippier go from right back to left back. I know, obviously, during your career a lot, you played centre back and right back at different times for different teams with Liverpool and England. Is it really difficult to go across the line? Do you think that was the right thing for Southgate to do, to try and get a right back in that left back role to cover Shaw?
Well, I played left back. There's no problem a right-footed player playing left back as long as you've got a left winger in front of you. And then your job is basically to facilitate them and keep getting them to the ball. You know, take 2 touches, control on your left, pass with your right, and get the ball to the wide man early. The problem England have got, they've got Foden on the left who likes to come inside. So then your left back has to provide the width. And that's when it's a problem if you've got a right-footed player at left back. Defensively, Kieran Trippier's done really well. You know, in terms of, performances, I think he's done really well because he can't do much more. He's not going to fly down the left wing and put crosses in. That's not going to happen. So that's the problem. And also one of the reasons why we should have someone wide left playing, because the balance of the team is not right. I mean, I think a big mistake now looking at it for Gareth Southgate was not just taking another left back. Maybe Mitchell from Crystal Palace. I mean, I think Chilwell's injured, but obviously somebody may not have, been around the England squad too much, or maybe you might say he's not really at that level. But if you get into the stage now where Luke Shaw couldn't have played in any of the group games, to think he'll come into a knockout game having not played for 3 months at international level, I think that's a big ask. And I just think the fact that you could bring 26 players, I think he should have brought a left back just to give balance, even if it means coming on for half an hour here or there, or just providing something, as I said, balance, or whether you need the goal to push forward, because Kieran Trippier can't offer you that. So I think there's been far too much reliance on Luke Shaw and the fitness of Luke Shaw. And for him not to make any of the group games, I think that's a huge mistake, not to bring anyone else with a left foot.
OK, Jamie, just looking at the knockout stages and the different routes that England can take. I'm sure most England fans have done that at this point. But if they win the group, they will be playing a side that finishes third in Group D, E or F. And then, if they get through that, a quarter-final against either Switzerland or Italy. If they finish runner-up, it's Germany next. And then likely, if they get through that, Spain in the quarter-finals. It's the same half of the draw that Portugal are in as well. It feels like that makes it a must-win, or certainly a must-top-the-group scenario tonight.
Yeah, it does, because that path would be a lot healthier. And I mean, the paths to semi-finals or finals have always fell for England to get at Southgate, and that's the look of the draw. That's what knockout football is. So this idea that it's just about qualifying, it's not. When you look at the way England can get there, you'd fancy them to win a last 16 game. They've got better players than Italy, I would say. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game, but I think if you look at the other way and you're looking at Germany and Spain, I find it quite difficult to make a case for England beating either of those teams. So I think it's absolutely imperative England finish top of the group, and then they've still got a decent chance of going really far in this tournament.
They win tonight, Jamie?
Yeah, I think they'll win. Yeah, I think the fact that Slovenia play a different system to the last 2 opponents that we've had now, I think that's caused us real problems. The fact that Serbia and Denmark played 3 at the back, and I think we're a bit lost about who should be pressing who, because in those systems, players can pop up in different positions. I think it makes it a lot more easier when a team play 4-4-2. It's almost, everyone's got their own man to a certain extent. So I think we'll be a lot better on the press. It's a team we should dominate and be on the ball and be on the front foot and be in opposition's half. And I'm sure England will improve on those last 2 performances. There'll be a lot of work on the training pitch, and hopefully it goes well.
Hopefully it does indeed. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us this afternoon.